Hello, this is Mr. Burell, and today I will be reading to you from Alan Gratz's Ground Zero, a novel of 9/11. Reshmina, Old Tires and RPG Launchers. It was cool and damp and dark inside the cave, and eerily quiet. Reshmina could still hear the pops and booms of guns above, but they were muted here, muffled by the meters of rock that Reshmina hoped would keep them safe until the battle was over. Reshmina took a step forward and banged her shin on something metal. She yelped in pain. "What is it?" Taz asked. "What's wrong?" Reshmina forgot he still couldn't see. "We're in the cave now. We're safe," she told him, "but it's dark. I ran into something." "Here, use my flashlight," Taz said. She heard the rip of Velcro, and Taz fumbled to lift the burqa he wore. "Here, I think we can liberate him now," Anna said. She helped Taz out of the burqa. Rashmina took the flashlight and clicked it on. The cave was smaller than she remembered, but the cave would have looked bigger to her back then, she realized. The last time she'd been here, it had just been her and Pasoon and a few other kids playing hide and seek. Now she was taller, and a dozen or so families from her village were squeezed inside with her. "I wish your Baba was here," Rashmina's mother said. She had Zahir in one arm and held Marzia's hand with the other. "I hope he's safe." Rashmina hoped he was too. He had made it to the A&A base at least, and they had gotten his message to the Americans that Taz was in the village. The soldiers fighting up above them were proof enough of that. Rashmina used Taz's flashlight to lead Taz and her family to the back of the cave, as far away from the entrance as they could get. The cave was full of rusty old Soviet-era junk they had to step around. Propellers, engine parts, spare tires, electronics with wires stuck out like wild hairs, big pieces of metal from trucks, and parts of old weapons too. The metal bits of rifles, RPG launchers with no rockets, disassembled landmines. "Be careful," one of the older men from the village said. "Some of these weapons might explode if you kick them the wrong way." Their parents had told them the same thing when they were little, of course, told them in no uncertain terms not to play in the cave beneath the village, that it was too dangerous. All that had done, of course, was make Rashmina and Pasoon and the others want to come down here and explore. Besides, how was it any safer to play above ground when the Americans and Taliban running around shooting at each other? Rashmina remembered wandering, amazed through all the old Soviet-era machines. They had been so foreign, so mysterious. Now they just looked sad. Taz put his hand out, frowning as he tried to feel what was around him. "I hate being blind," he said. Rashmina turned off the flashlight, saving the battery. "We're all in the dark," she told him. "I'm scared of the dark," Taz confessed. "I was lost in the dark once and couldn't see when I was a boy. It was very scary. I've been afraid of the dark ever since." Rashmina wasn't afraid of the dark. Lantern fuel was expensive, and they burned the lantern in their house only when they had to. She got up just before the dawn every day and went to bed every night after the sun went down. Darkness was just another part of her world, not something to love or fear. But whatever had happened to Taz as a boy, being in the dark was making him sweat with panic now. Boom, boom. Dirt and rock misted down from the cave ceiling as muffled explosions struck nearby. "M320 grenade launcher," Taz said. "How do you know?" Rashmina asked. "The sound, the feel," Taz said. "I have been here a long time." "How long?" Rashmina asked. 10 years off and on, Taz told her. 10 years and you speak no Pashto? Rashmina asked. Taz didn't answer right away. Perhaps he was ashamed. Rashmina would be. After all, she had spent the last few years of her life learning English. "I speak Mandarin Chinese," Taz said. "You speak Chinese?" Rashmina asked. She couldn't believe it. "Shai-day," Taz said. "Army Special Forces have to learn a second language, and I was taught Mandarin. Because so many people in Afghanistan speak Chinese," Rashmina said wryly. "I guess they figured there was life after Afghanistan," Taz said. From the way he said it, it sounded like Taz wasn't so sure that was true anymore. The ground and walls shook, and Rashmina felt her insides shake with them. She knew the feeling. A helicopter was flying by. "Apache," she said. Taz shook his head. "Sikorsky HH-60 Pavehawk," he told her. "Modified Black Hawk. Apaches are more like," he said, plowing out through his lips. "60s are more like the 60s are for me, I guess. They're search and rescue birds." All this was for Taz, Rashmina thought, and all because she'd led him back to her house that wasn't there anymore. Doom. Something big exploded on the ground above the cave, and the interior shook harder than before. A woman cried out as a piece of one of the walls broke off and tumbled down into the metal junk on the floor. Rashmina watched Taz, who was suddenly alert. Doom. The next explosion was bigger, closer. This one knocked them all to the ground. Rashmina's eyes went wide, and she put her palms against the dirt as though she could command the earth to stop shaking. It didn't work, and she began to think that coming into the cave was a very, very bad idea. What if this place became their tomb? A chunk of the ceiling fell on an old man toward the front of the cave, and the people around him cried out and tried to unbury him. Taz put his hand to the wall and slowly stood, a look of fear on his face. What is it? Rashmina asked, still on the ground. I don't know. It's hard to tell down here, but to shake us like that, it feels like Reaper drones, laser-guided bombs. No sooner had Taz said it than kadoom! A bomb hit right on top of the cave, and the whole ceiling fell in.